Okay, let's get started. So in today's video, I'm going to walk you step by step through the basics of researching a distressed property. This research or due diligence should begin after an investor has determined their investment strategy, the states and counties they want to invest in, and has already secured a list of properties from those locations. Obviously, you can't begin your due diligence until you have a list of actual properties to begin with. So I have a template here that we're going to use, and I will cover as much as possible today, but by no means is this the end all be all. But let's get started, and be sure to stick around to the end of the video where I'll give you access to this actual template that I will be using. You can see on my screen here, we've got a research template that I have put together, and it's divided into sections. And the best way to look at research is, what you need to help you with your due diligence on that property. And so I've got our columns of important pieces of information to begin your kind of baseline due diligence research. And then I've pre-filled some of that information in here as an example. However, I do want to walk you through these sections to kind of show you where we find a lot of this information. This happens to be in Alachua, Florida, and is on an upcoming tax sale list for a deed sale. We went ahead and chose this parcel ID, and we'll kind of work with that. You'll see two different IDs here. It just really depends on which site you need, and sometimes you need two different formats. So, Google is your friend when you're looking for the information. On this research template, it also has, where this information for this section is typically found. This is obviously different. It will change. A name of an assessor might be different in each state or even each county. So an assessor and appraiser site, usually the typical names for this first section, which we are deeming property characteristics. And again, it is your basic property information. It's where that where that property is, who the owner is, and the type of property and so on. So I'm going to go out and find the Alachua property appraiser. Again, I Googled it and just brought up our site, and we're going to go in here and put in our parcel number. I'm going to go grab this over here. And if you were looking for all the properties on a list, you would just do this one by one with each parcel, essentially. Gives you some baseline information here, and we could use that, but we'll just go into the property specifically, and that way we can get a lot of information. You can see we've got our mailing information here. We've got the taxpayer, which would also be the owner, and that is all filling out right here in this section. Then we can get an idea of, the legal information, which is also something that we can fill out and we take note of. Now, this section, which is labeled as history here, is your valuation. And I'm going to come back to that because it's in a different part of our template, and make some points as to where you can get that information. But anyway, that's your history. We've got land use. This is obviously what the property's class is. This is also known as land use, property class. It is different from zoning. So, we have basically a breakdown of that land use code, which is a county code, and then the description of that associated code. This is, pure acreage, so that's kind of an important thing, especially if someone's looking for single family residential. You need to know what kind of property it is. And then really, it looks like we're missing on here potentially a location address. We've got our mailing address, and the mailing and the location are very different. So that's something to key into. So we'll see if we can find that somewhere else. It does look like they don't have bedrooms and bathrooms on the this particular appraiser site. Of course, this is vacant land, so that's why this is 00. But most assessor sites will have that information for you. Another piece to keep in mind is this exterior description and structure rating. Those are more challenging to find in an assessor site. A lot of times you have to go to big data warehouses or title reports to get that type of information, or drive-by inspections. But we do feel like that's pretty important information to know, which is why we have it listed here in the property characteristics. I think that about covers it. You can see that the appraiser site, has a bit more information, and we're going to come back to that with other sections. So the next section we're going to discuss is the valuation portion. I say right here, you can find this on an assessor site normally, or even a tax collector site. And I say both because it really depends on each county. If you want to go to a tax collector site, you can certainly Google it and put it in here. We found Alachua County Tax Collector right here. In the case of this county, it has a nice clean link to the tax collector site. But first and foremost, we know that the valuation is available right here. And that's key. Not only does it give you, the latest assessed year, but it gives you a history of it as well. And remember that there's a market value and there's an assessed value. Assessed value is usually how a county bases their taxes. Market value is not the same as fair market value or retail value. That's something you would find on like a Zillow site. This is definitely how the county determines a market value. In the case of Florida, most of those places have the same number for both. So just keep that in mind, because in other places that will be different. And the nice part is we have that available right here. And they have this clear link to the tax collector site. So we're just going to use that because it'll go right into our parcel without having to look it up, which is handy. And we didn't find our tax amount, which is one of our key pieces of valuation. This helps you find your lien to value ratio if you know how much that parcel is being sold for, which is usually advertised on the list. And it's important to know your tax amount so you can kind of give an idea of what that, that's the valuation. That gives you a lien to value ratio, but you can also compare what the amount due is with what the yearly tax amounts are. And that helps a lot of times if you know that you'll have a chance to buy future delinquent amounts. You'll know kind of what that 1 year amount looks like. So if we go in here to the tax collector, the nice part is we have that missing location address, and unfortunately it looks like it's unassigned, and that does happen with vacant property time to time, but that is something we can reference and go back and fill up on our property characteristics. But we're also looking for, they have, it looks like their valuations here if necessary, but we're looking for that 1 year tax amount, which is right here in that 2019. Counties in Florida do give you a lot of other good information. If you want to dig deeper into further research, you can go in by past years. It will show you if there was a tax deed or if there's a tax lien on the property. So it does give you valuable information in that regard as well. But this is a great place to do your baseline searching, is within the tax collector site. So that takes care of the tax collector, the valuation section. So next we have our mortgage and loans. And many times this is found with the recorder of deeds or the county clerk and recorder. I mean, they're called a variety of things in each area. But key pieces of knowing here is, when did this last have a transaction and for how much? It helps you get a valuation. It also lets you know, okay, is there a deed on this property? When was it recorded? You can also find out who if there's a mortgage and what type of mortgage, because if you know that there's a mortgager on the property, it's a good sense that that mortgager has an invested interest in the property, which does make a difference for being able to notice and being able to purchase that clean and clear at the end of the process, the acquiring process. So Anyway, there's a couple ways of doing this. I happen to see that on the assessor site, there's actually a great place where it gives you some of that information. It's showing you, okay, in 93, it looks like there was some sort of purchase or transfer of deed, and it gives you a really clean, quick link to the official record of that deed transfer. There's also another way you can go about this is to actually go into the clerk site, and we put in the owner, which is that taxpayer up here. And then we put in the section, range, and township, which we can find in the legal description, or it's broken down on the tax collector site, and we can pull that. And then we can do a search, and then it's going to pull up all of the recorded information, right? So, this is a lot to go into document by document, but at least it's something that you can quickly look at. There's a mortgage. It looks like it was recorded in 86. We'd have to look to see if that mortgage has been cleared, and we can kind of keep scrolling down through the years to see when there was a transfer and so forth. So we found that the last transaction for this particular parcel was in July of 2010 for $150,000. So that is, here's the deed and the actual, recording and so forth, or when it hit title and so forth was at that time. So you use this in the the clerk and recorder site. Again, it was nice because the assessor had a couple of those, but they're old information, and so as we found, there was an even later transaction essentially of that parcel. So that takes care of that mortgage and loan information. Next, we have the environmental risk rating. This is typically found in costly EPA databases. It is something that I have my hands on, and so I can quickly research and look up. But it's something that you would have to tap into EPA databases specifically, and we happen to use local, state, and federal databases to pinpoint subject counts as far as what environmental hazards are on property and around the property. The last section is our parcel mapping, and obviously it's really important to know where that property is located and what's around it. And in this case, the assessor site does give you a quick link to the GIS map, so you can click that and it'll open up your viewer here where it'll show you basically a plat map. Now, not all plat maps are available online. Many times you'll have to go down to county office to grab plats and see where those lines are. With the power of Google, that does change, but it's always good to verify location information based on that parcel with the plat maps in the county. Be careful, basically. Do your due diligence. But in this case, we also know that this property is located at Southeast Hawthorne Road in Gainesville, Florida. So we can put this in and we can look and try to find where this is located, right? So looks like if we do some comparing to our parcel viewer, since this is a vacant property, it is hard to completely see where we're at on the map in comparison with Google Maps. I mean, this is where it pinpointed it. So I would scroll out quite a ways in order to kind of get the bearings of where we're at to the city. It looks like there's a giant lake, which will help us. And if we scroll out on the Google map, we see we're down here. And that's not right because the property is on the other side. It looks like the northwest side of the lake. So we can scroll in here and kind of get more of our look here. And I think now we're getting a little closer. Again, scrolling here, we can see what streets we're bordering, 39th and, I'm trying to get rid of this, 39th and it looks like 43rd Street. So yeah, we're right here. Oops, wait, I'm on the wrong one. It looks like here's 43rd, here's 39th. So the property is right in here. So we can now see the boundary. And it's giving us an address, which is nice. I guess not. Anyway, we get the lat longs here, which is good. And we are able to see that that's surrounded by, we can see our satellite view now, and see that this is, surrounded by developing, but it's a giant piece of property in the middle of, all this development. We've cheated. We were able to get the lat longs, and so, it platted it real nice and easy right here. And I can compare, and I guess we're pretty right. So that's good. So that's our parcel mapping. It can be challenging, especially if you don't have a full location address. Vacant land is, more challenging because if you don't have a house number, it's harder to look that up in Google Maps. We know lat longs, we base that on parcel ID, and so that's how we come up with our mapping structure. And then of course we match and look that it's matching the plat map.